Welcome to our Women in Solar webcast. I'm Karina Gonzalez, Workforce Coordinator for Grid Alternatives. Grid Alternatives is a nonprofit organization that makes solar power accessible to underserved communities. We install solar exclusively for low-income families using a volunteer model that provides opportunities for job trainees, community volunteers, and really anyone interested in solar to get on the roof and get hands-on experience. Grid's long-term vision is a transition to renewable energy that is all-inclusive. We believe that if we are going to succeed, we need to be able to engage everyone, from low-income families to seniors to minorities and women. Today's webcast is part of an initiative we launched in 2014, partnering with SunEdison to bring more women into the solar industry and help women already in the industry thrive. The solar industry is growing exponentially, and in order to sustain that fantastic level of growth and ensure that the industry is meeting the needs to consumers, we need to bring the voices, talents, and leadership of women to the table. We organized this series of panel discussions to highlight some of the career paths that are available in solar and inspire more women to join the industry, as well as have a frank discussion about some of the barriers women face and how to tackle them. Our previous webcast discussions are available on our website at gridalternatives.org/women. You'll also find more information about our National Women in Solar Initiative and other ways you can get involved. We invite you now to use the live Q&A feature located on the right-hand side of the Hangout to ask our panelists your questions, and we'll answer them at the end of the webcast. Today's webcast will explore the role of mentorship in career success. We've lined up 4 panelists to give you all some insight into both finding and being a good mentor. Our panelists for today's discussion are Katherine Gensler, the Director of Federal Affairs at SEIA, Kristen Graf, the Executive Director of Women in Wind Energy, Donna Hammond, the Public Employees Representative at IBEW, and by Fiona Taylor, the Vice President of Finance at SolarCity. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm going to start today by asking each of our panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their careers and personal experience with mentorship. Donna, do you mind starting us off?
And I am a member of IBEW 48. I've been a member for 37 years, and I started my apprenticeship to be an electrician back in the 1900s. And what happened for me, there were so many people who wanted to see me succeed and gave me support along the way that today I am the business agent for the public sector. I could not have done this by myself. There were several guys who did not want me around, but I found way more white men who really wanted to make me the best electrician that I could be and assisted me in becoming that person.
Thank you so much. Fiona, can you go ahead and build onto that?
Sure, no problem. So my name is Fiona Taylor. I've been here at SolarCity. This is my 7th year, so have seen pretty amazing growth over that time. Before that, I was in, I started my career in the military for 10 years, and then I was in various different finance roles before here. So I'm excited to be involved today, so thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thank you so much. And what about you, Katherine?
Hi, everyone. I'm Katherine Gensler. I'm Director of Government Affairs at the Solar Energy Industries Association. I've been here since the beginning of 2008, and like Fiona, have seen a lot of changes in the solar industry in that time. Prior to that, I worked for the federal government at a little agency called the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, doing some what is not usually thought of as front page work, except that in the wake of the California energy crisis, it sure was on the front page, and suddenly everybody had a vague sense of what it was I did with my time. But there's a lot more excitement about solar than there is about electric transmission regulation in this country. But happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you, Katherine. And finally, Kristen.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen Graf. I'm the Executive Director of Women of Wind Energy. I've been at WOWI since the end of 2009. We're a national nonprofit focused on recruiting more women into renewable energy, helping retain and advance all the amazing women like you that are already out there, and working on getting everybody talking about renewables in new and different ways in their communities. And I'm thrilled to be here. I think my background is in engineering, and I went into it because I wanted to work on renewable energy. I left that to work on the policy side for a while with the Union of Concerned Scientists in Boston, where some of my great mentors still are. And I think it's a really important conversation overall, and a key piece, not only mentoring, but how we support and advance the women in this field of how we're going to get to the clean energy future we're all really excited about.
Thank you, Kristen. Well, thank you for those wonderful introductions. The panelists, you are all amazing ladies, and we are so happy to be able to work with you today. So just for our viewers, a reminder, if you have any questions, please type them into the box, and we'll answer them at the end of the discussion. So let's go ahead and start, if you don't mind, with Katherine. Who have been the most important mentors in your career, and how did you connect with them?
I've been really lucky to just sort of stumble across people when I needed them. I think that comes from being outgoing and willing to ask for help. So if you're not those things, I think maybe you need to think about how to work on them. I stumbled across a person in the energy industry through a networking organization. She's more on the financial analyst side of the universe, but has a great Rolodex. So when I started telling her what my hopes and dreams were, she just started sending out emails to people and connecting me with others. That has been really a key source of my career mobility. And then when I was with the federal government, they did have a formal mentorship program built within kind of the HR hierarchy there. I was part of it for about 9 months before I took on a different role. That was a little bit maybe a little less organic. You know, you had to sign up, somebody else did the matching, and frankly, I didn't get my first choice mentor for important reasons because she was in my chain of command, but I think while I had a good experience with the mentor I got, we came at the world from very different places, so it was helpful to have a different perspective, but it wasn't as easy of a follow in the footsteps kind of experience.
Well, thank you. Kristen, would you like to add your experience?
Sure, happy to chime in, and I guess maybe I'll speak both to some of my own mentors and those experiences, but also just want to offer up that with Women of Wind Energy, WOWI, we have a mentoring program that we've been working really hard on for years, and in fact in the last couple of years have focused on expanding it to include peer mentoring programs. So I think similar to some of the things Katherine was saying, my mentors have been a mix of people all over my career and surrounding me in various things. It's sometimes that person that's higher up and that has a ton of experience, but also it's sometimes the people right next to me that are willing to give me the most honest and straightforward feedback. And so kind of developing those tools through WOWI, where we offer both one-on-one mentoring, but also these peer groups where you can sit together with one other. We make groups of 4 to 6 women who can work together to address a series of issues and to kind of talk about the different concerns, and in that way sort of flatten any of the hierarchy or pressure around being the one with all the information to provide or being the one who needs to learn everything. When you can balance that out, I've seen a lot of enthusiasm and excitement from people when you can have some of the give and take. You have something to offer and something to get out of it. And I think the other piece I thought I'd add that's maybe a little edge on it is, you know, we often talk about in women's programming that women tend to be over-mentored and under-sponsored. So I think something that's really important to think about when you're looking at mentorship and mentorship opportunities are who are the people that can be your mentors and help get you feedback and reflect on who you are and what you're doing, and where your skills might need to switch or change or improve or tweak. But then also thinking strategically about who are your sponsors. And that comes back tied in tightly to your goals and where you're headed. But the sponsor is the person who can open that door for you, who's willing to go to bat for you, who you've been building a relationship with for a long time, not necessarily as a mentor, but as someone who knows your work and has a lot of respect for you, and as a result, carries some clout somewhere. And so a story I often tell is about getting this job in particular. I had been working for the Union of Concerned Scientists for a while, doing nonprofit work, but it was, I think, from the outside, a big step to jump to executive director. But I knew for sure it was an incredible job for me and a great opportunity and an amazing fit. But I wasn't sure exactly how to get in the door enough, no matter how great a cover letter I wrote or things like that. And I had a colleague who I had worked with a lot, who I knew was going to be at a meeting of the hiring committee, or at a meeting where some of the members of the hiring committee would also be at that meeting. And I said to him, you have to get me an interview. And so it was still about me standing and walking on my own 2 feet, but it was about how to get that door open and how to leverage the connections and the people I knew to get that door open. And he was like, oh my God, that's the perfect job for you, of course. And he went to that meeting and he said, you're out of your mind if you don't get her an interview. And they called me the next day. So I think there's sort of that mix of who are the people that can give you the honest, direct feedback and see them as your regular go-to mentors, but also who are the people that are going to open the doors and help you make the big steps that you need to make. And think of them as your sponsors. And you may need to kind of navigate those relationships in slightly different ways.
Thank you, Kristen. And Donna, do you have anything you would like to add?
I really like what Kristen had to say. And I like the term sponsor. I had always used advocate, someone who could be in the room when I wasn't in the room and knew my passion, my skills and abilities, and could share that to the upline or someone when I could not. It could be my voice and put me out there and get me heard, if that makes sense. I had a unique opportunity that I was able to connect with people who were possibly had careers that I didn't even know about. When I was an electrician, rank and file, working with the tools, I ran across some people that looked like me who were business managers and international officers. And I had no idea that I could be that. I thought I was going to twist wires my whole career. And so they connected with me and gave me such insight to pathways to where I sit here today. So they could offer up my credentials when I couldn't. Thank you, Kristen.
Yes, and thank you.
I think you just said Fiona, but I'm getting a bit of an echo. So a couple of things. So first of all, I completely support the advice here of advocates or sponsors. My first big break came from an advocate of mine who pushed me for a promotion. It was my first big promotion to director, and I came back from vacation actually to find out that I had been put in charge of a team and promoted to director without even applying for it. and she believed in me before I even believed in myself. So that was the first big role for me where I realized, oh, actually, I can do this and I can do it well. So completely support the advice here of differentiating between mentors and advocates. The only other thing I wanted to add from a mentor perspective is I believe there are lots of different types of mentors. Throughout your life, as your needs change throughout your career, your mentors can change as well. And you can have mentors for discrete events, maybe just one particular event, preparing for an interview or preparing for a presentation, or you can have mentors who stay with you for 12, 18, 24 months. And I think it's really important to just realize that as your career grows, your mentors will change, and not to put a narrow definition on it. You may have a couple of different mentors for different things. So when you're looking for your mentor or looking for the next opportunity, don't narrow yourself and don't narrow your opportunity by just thinking, oh, I have to have this type of person. You can have a couple of different people who can provide you help in different areas. So that would be my add-on.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and go with Kristen. What do you believe makes a good mentor, and where should you look for one?
I think those are some great questions and important things to think about. From the mentor side specifically, I think the number one thing is their availability and interest in being a mentor and working with you. And so that's kind of the top line to me is sometimes people have high aspirations for some mentor that's the top of the line person from some company and exactly the high level that they want to get to, and that can be a great mentor, and you have to work to build the relationship so that they're interested if they even have the availability. So those are kind of the first key pieces: availability and interest. Beyond that, I think you're looking for someone who knows you well enough to speak honestly to you about you and your work, your style, and can help you with honest feedback in navigating the different relationships and networks around you. And then beyond that, it's really about you as someone looking for mentorship, setting specific goals and thinking about then who is the right person that can help me figure that out. Like if you're brand new to an industry, maybe what you need is just someone who can give you a broad picture of the landscape, help you work through jargon, figure out what some of the acronyms mean. And that's very different from if you're a VP trying to get to a CEO level or something like that. So figuring out where you're at and what you're hoping for from that mentor partnership can help you figure out who the right person is.
Thank you. And Donna, would you like to continue the conversation?
Wanted to go to and find the most knowledgeable person that I could in a certain subject matter. And that has proved to give me value and to shorten the time that it would take me to reach my goals. And so I found that if a person is available, honest, and we can set real clear boundaries and expectations, I found that most helpful in selecting a mentor.
And Fiona, can we have you add next?
Absolutely. So I agree with what's been said so far, so I don't want to repeat that. But what I will say is, in my experience, the success of the relationship is 90% about the mentee. So it has to be led by the mentee. If you go into it thinking that the mentor is going to solve all your problems, they're going to, get you the promotion and get you to the next level, and they're going to set your goals for you, then you're basically setting up for failure. So I find that a really good mentor asks you questions and guides you through the process, but you basically come up with your own solutions. They may prod and poke and push back, but in the end, it's about them guiding you through your journey rather than leading you. That's been my personal experience. So I think 90% of this is about you knowing what you need, being really honest with yourself and knowing what skills you're wanting to develop or what you're wanting to work on, and then reaching out and finding the right sort of person who can match and help you and guide you through those skills. But if you're going into it with a mentality of this person is going to solve my problems or fix my problems for me, that's when I've seen these relationships fail.
Absolutely. And Katherine, would you like to finish this off?
Sure. So I would absolutely, hands down, everything everyone has said so far has been on point. I do think the key is both being willing to, as the mentee, being willing to really own that piece of the relationship and finding a mentor who is willing to meet you where you are and then can sort of buy into a shared vision for where it is you want to be. And that ultimately just takes a lot of communication and finding the right relationship.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next question. This one's for Donna to start off with. What does an effective mentorship program look like, and how can people get involved as mentors?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. What does an effective mentorship program look like, and how can people get involved as mentors?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up too. I really can't hear that. Can you come back to me?
Sure, no problem. Fiona, are you able to hear me?
Go ahead and repeat the question. I can hear you.
What does an effective mentorship program look like, and how do you think people can get involved as mentors?
Okay, sure. So we actually started a mentorship program here at SolarCity company-wide, which was an excellent learning process for all of us because we absolutely learned what not to do. So we started off with Google spreadsheets and questionnaires and putting everyone in Excel and matching people manually. It was sort of like we felt a little bit like Yentas at the end because we were really matchmaking everybody based on our knowledge of them, and it was awfully manual. And we had probably an 80% success rate, but there were definitely about 20% of people where the relationship just didn't work. And I heard one of the other ladies say earlier on in the cast about the success being control, and she was auto selected with someone, and that wasn't as successful, and that's certainly what we found. So what we moved towards is an online program which is kind of like a cross between online dating and LinkedIn, and mentors put up their profiles and what they're good at and what they'd like to do, and mentees do it too, and then mentees can go on and browse and choose, and then all of the matching is done through the software. But it gives the control to the mentee and the mentor to really self-select. And we found that that was the key to success rather than it being externally driven. That was definitely our experience with a successful program. And then what we needed to do was reach out internally within the organization to people in leadership positions and encourage them to set up profiles and become mentors. And that took a little bit of sort of advocacy on a lot of the people who are driving the program. Not sure if that answered your question, but I'm happy to expand.
No, thank you. That is a really great description of the program and what it would look like and what it can accomplish. And Katherine, do you have anything that you might want to add to that?
Sure. In my experience as a mentor, mine was through my alumni association. So I am the graduate who has some work experience, and I got a couple of just leaving school young women to work with. And I think one of the keys was the time commitment, but also making it a very regular occurrence. You can't just sort of wait for there to be like a question that pops up or a crisis moment, but rather you build the relationship by saying, okay, we're going to get on the phone for an hour every month and we're going to talk about whatever needs to be discussed. And we usually try to kind of make a game plan for next time, a little bit of homework, send me an update on X, we can talk about Y, and sort of working toward, in the beginning it was toward getting a job, now it's much more of managing the beginning parts of a person's career and really knowing, having a little bit of structure to it, that we have time dedicated and we have a shared goal that we're both pushing toward.
Thank you. And Kristen, would you like to finish it off?
Sure, and hopefully we'll be able to go back to Donna too, but I would start by seconding some of the things that Fiona said. We went through very similar hurdles with the WOWI mentoring program in terms of in the early days working with a third-party program that did a formal matching process. And again, some of them were great matches and people had a lot of success out of that program, but there were also some hesitations and some challenges with it, and we've moved toward a very similar model, especially for our one-on-one matching, where mentors put up their information about their background, about how often they're willing to be available, about topics that they're interested in talking about, and then mentees can search through the mentor profiles that are available and self-select in that way. And we also have, as a part of our program, what we call our mentoring ambassadors, which are members of our national mentoring committee that help support both mentees and mentors through the entire process. And so if a mentee is sort of stumbling in terms of who should I even be starting with in this list, the mentoring ambassador can sit with them and sort of talk about, well, what are your real goals in terms of what you're trying to get out of the program, and think through who might be a good fit so that they can start. But again, I think we heard Katherine and Fiona say it, that it really is, especially in the one-on-one settings, a program that is more mentee-driven and that isn't just solely focused on the matching, but it's really focused on the support throughout the program is important. And then the other piece I'd add in terms of programs is looking for ones that have flexibility and a variety of ways to connect and be involved and figure out what you feel like works well for you as a person and what you're hoping to gain. We noticed some of this hesitation in our own membership in terms of both people that were interested in finding mentors, having some hesitation reaching out to people to get the relationship started. But we also saw hesitation from a lot of women in our program that didn't necessarily see themselves as mentors. Even when in industries as fast growing as wind and solar, if you've been in the business a year or even two, you often have a lot to offer someone else. And so we saw that hesitation and tried to figure out what were some alternatives that we could work on building out that might open things up a little bit more. And that's how we came up with the idea of the peer group mentoring. And so again, this is a much more structured program than our one-on-one mentoring, but it's geared towards getting a group of women together, starting a specific series of conversations. So we've set up a 6-session curriculum for them to work through together, again, in groups of 4 to 6. And the idea is for them not necessarily to be in similar sectors, but maybe in similar stages, slightly different time. And we do a lot of manual matching on that one, but we've had a really exciting success rate so far in terms of enthusiasm and return rate. This is just our 2nd year piloting it. And if anyone's watching who's been in the registration, it's been a long process for us, but we're announcing those groups soon. So we're really excited about that alternative, and I think it really does help break down some of those power dynamics that you really need to be aware of.
Thank you, Kristen, and we'll try to circle back around to Donna. Are you able to hear us now, Donna?
Yes, thank you. I think you were given some really good ideas and suggestions and of programs that are working well. One of the I've had an opportunity of being involved in several mentoring relationships, and what worked really well is if the mentee really had a clear idea of what they wanted from me, and what didn't work, and we're rebuilding and rebranding a program here now, is it feeling like it's remedial, that there are some people who feel that, you know, they are either that they have it already all together and they don't need additional support, because some people think that mentoring is, you know, remedial, if I'm saying that, if that makes sense to you. So getting over that stigma to provide assistance. So your question was, what has worked really well? What has worked well has been finding that joint common interest and availability, and people are really appreciating what mentorship and the value of mentorship. I think I answered your question. For me,
absolutely. Everyone has given such a great description and idea of a really great program and how that would look, or how it actually is looking for some of you. Let's go ahead with our final question before we open it up to questions from our viewers. And we'll start with Fiona for this one. Once you have a mentor or become a mentor, how do you get the most out of your relationship?
I'm having trouble with the audio. Can you repeat?
Sure. Once you have a mentor or become a mentor, how do you get the most out of your relationship?
Ah, the easy question. Excellent. I think there are three things that that it's really important to remember. The first one is goals, right? Be very specific with what you're trying to achieve, because they say if you don't know where you're going, you will never get there, right? So you have to be very, very specific with what you're trying to achieve. You need to regularly check in and measure against that goal. And then the mentee has to own the relationship and drive the relationship and be the person who's reaching out and setting up that meeting and going, okay, so this is my goal and this is what I've done and let's talk about this. I think if those three things aren't happening, then the relationship, you're not going to get what you want from the relationship.
Absolutely. Katherine, do you have anything you'd like to add?
As I said earlier, I think a lot of it comes down to communication, and that's both about your goals and just setting up those interim steps of how you're going to get there. I think to have a lasting mentoring relationship, you kind of have to be flexible and be willing to shift goals along the way and to go in a direction that maybe wasn't foreseeable at the beginning. I'm going to spend some time in the next week with one of my mentees talking about personal finances. Is that getting her a job? No, not really, but it's certainly going to build some financial acumen that could be either job or certainly personal life skills in the coming years. And so just being able to listen to the conversation and pick up on what are the things that, you know, are skills-based and could be worked on next is pretty important.
Thank you. And Kristen?
Sure. I mean, I think Fiona and Katherine have definitely hit on really key things in terms of commitment, and setting goals is something we talk about all the time with our program, and being as specific as you possibly can, and you know, connecting and having that flexibility is really important. And I say, you know, both for the mentor and the mentee, to the extent you can keep in your mind that it's a partnership, and that hopefully you're both finding ways to give and get something from it, and that there's again, to the extent you can kind of break down the power dynamic in it and recognize that you both have things to take away, the more you're going to kind of empower each other in that space. And I think it's also really about how well you get to know each other and understand the other person that you're working with and their styles and how you're going to get the most out of your conversations and your work together. And that may come back to that flexibility piece and your goals. In terms of, you know, some people are going to want to get straight down to business and focus in great detail on, you know, the career development pieces. Some people may need more time to really get to know each other and spend more time in maybe that softer space that's kind of about your hobbies and your interests and how you build that relationship so that you can kind of get to a place of comfort and trust with each other so that you can give honest feedback. If you're starting from a place that you already know each other, that's perfect because you're already moving that ground. But if you are coming through a program where you don't know each other, you may need to spend some of that time up front, you know, even in more, you know, career detail ways, if it's, you know, watching a webinar together, whether it's one like this or something else about an industry topic and coming back and having a conversation around it so that you can build that rapport together and then go from there to build the rest of the relationship and actually focus in on how you drive the goals overall.
Thank you, Kristen. And Donna, would you like to finish off the question?
I think that being realistic, having clear and great communication skills. Trust is a significant value that you should bring to the relationship, and being able to critically think together, think through the issue, and help problem solve.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Such great advice for our viewers. So now we're going to go ahead and go on to our questions. And so this is available for anyone who'd like to answer. This is from our viewer, Fariel. I'm sorry if I misenunciated that. Hi, I am a project manager at a solar integrator. We have a growing women's group at the company, but still not a large ratio of women at the company yet. What have other organizations been able to do to encourage hiring more women in the solar field?
Are we each just jumping in on this? All right.
Yes.
Great. I guess I'm happy to go ahead and jump in a little bit in that, you know, I think the place to start that I often recommend is to try and understand the data of your company and your organization and know where people are and where they're not. You know, obviously there are different parts of the pipeline, right? And so whether it's the recruitment phase, whether it's the hiring phase, whether it's retention throughout the business. And so understanding kind of where the top points are in that for your company is an important place to start. I think then if it's on the recruitment side, there's a lot that can be done in terms of outreach to great organizations, recognizing the people within your own organization, getting connected to all the different programs, colleges, and universities that are lined up to kind of have a pipeline. I often hear from people that they just don't get enough applicants. And to me, that means they're not doing enough of the work that needs to be done to get out there and find them, because there are amazing people, amazing women of color, just like desperately waiting to get into a lot of the companies that are out there and that sometimes don't even know what's going on. I think I told this story not that long ago, but I was at the Society of Women Engineers conference last year, working on doing a panel actually with Anna Bautista from Grid Alterantives also about women in sustainability. And at the end of that panel, the room had been packed but each panelist had a line of women out the door, basically, standing, waiting to talk to us. And almost all the women that came up to me were like, oh my gosh, I'm in this engineering program. I've been wanting to work in environmental work, in renewable energy, and something like this, and I just had no idea where to even get started. And so I think we have a lot of work to do as our own industries on the recruitment and connection side in terms of getting out there and making sure people know what jobs there are and getting them in the door. And there's also incredible work to be done in terms of how we write job descriptions, the language that we use. There are more and more online tools out there all the time. There are ways to create slates and request, if you're working with recruiters or hiring managers, to say, I'm not even going to look at this until my slate is at least half women or something like that. And so I expect you to be bringing me candidates from the full breadth of people that are out there waiting for these jobs. And then take an honest look at your company culture too, right? Because a lot of women I know, when they go apply somewhere, they're going to look around. And if there aren't that many other women, or it doesn't look like a very welcoming, opening kind of place, it may or may not be the place they choose to work. And so there's a lot of internal work and reflection that every company has to do pretty much on an ongoing basis, in my opinion. And that's reflected in all of those pieces: recruitment, hiring, retention, and advancement. I could go on this for a long time, so I'll stop there. But if anyone wants to talk more another day, let me know.
I completely agree with what Kristen said, and I just wanted to add one thing, is that I do think as an industry and probably as a culture, we have a long way to go with unconscious bias. This has to come from the top, and we need our executive teams to be looking around and being aware, and that trickling down, because people will emulate the behavior that they see their executives do. And until we address unconscious bias in a real way, then it can't just come from us. It has to be across the board, and it has to be addressed at a holistic level.
Totally agree. In order to take a step that is within sort of your circle of influence, if you're not already an executive, I would really push people. A lot of companies have like recruitment programs or a bonus that you get if you attract a candidate who gets hired and then stays on for 6 months. Like, even if you don't have a financial incentive to do it, think of every job opening as an incentive for you to find 3 or 4 women who you know to be qualified or semi-qualified, that's a whole other topic, for the job to apply. That's how you can sort of juice the system to make sure that there are female candidates for consideration. Even if you're not the hiring authority and you're not the executive who can make a cultural shift on a dime, make sure that those people are being funneled through the pipeline.
And one other thing I wanted to add as well is I think it's really important that we look at the way that we work. I have women working now for me who are working part-time. And, coming from Europe, part-time work or job share work was something that was pretty standard there. And coming to America, it wasn't something that I found. But, when women do have the child where miracles happen and men can bear babies, we do take maternity leave and we do have things that we need to juggle. And I'd love to see the industry be more flexible in terms of part-time jobs and job sharing and more flexible working hours. I try and do that myself, but I am just one person, and I'd love to see it more of an industry standard of accepting the fact that when we lose a woman from the workforce, we lose so much training and education, and it's a tragedy. If we can keep that person by part-time hours for 3 or 4 years and then back to full-time, that's just a bonus for everybody. So that's something that I think I'm certainly advocating here at SolarCity, and I'd love to see the industry take on in more in general.
Well, thank you. Our next question is from Alexandra. Sounds like finding a mentor may be a mix of serendipitous coincidence and luck. What is your advice for how can we as women become mentors for others?
I think the key is to raise your hand and say yes. You know, I mean, hopefully everyone on this webcast has a LinkedIn profile. If somebody cold emails you and says, your career looks amazing, how do I do that sort of thing? Please, please, just say yes. Reach back out to that person and, you know, have the conversation and be there and just be willing and open to be a mentor when that opportunity comes across your path. Or maybe Kristen has some more formal ways for you to get involved.
That's great. I'll have two things to say, I guess. One is, yes, if you want to be a mentor, one great way is to look for formal programs where you can make yourself available as a mentor. So programs like WOWI's mentoring program, or through other trade associations and organizations, or your alumni association, when you can kind of put out there your information and profile and say, I'm open, I'm willing to have someone call me. I think that's great. One thing that I would really caution against, and again, this comes back to some of the power dynamics, is walking up to someone and just saying, you know, you really need me to be your mentor. I think there's pretty much nothing quite as disempowering, actually. And so I think you need to be really cautious in a certain way about how you approach people as a potential mentee. And I think in the end, the most valuable relationships are ones that are mentee driven, because the mentee's like really excited and goal oriented to be there. And so making yourself visible and available, or less sort of direct in that way, right? Where you see someone that you work with who's amazing, you think they should be doing more or working in this direction, or if they worked on this one thing, it would get them that next promotion. And having an opportunity to say, you know, I'd love to work with you on this sometime if it would be helpful, you know, and just kind of leaving it open in that way. Where are the ways to just open the door and leave it a little bit ajar? So that it still offers the opportunity for that mentee to take the initiative and say it's something that they really want, more so than sort of forced on them. But yes, overall, yes, 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 say yes, get out there. You have no idea how many people are looking just for some basic guidance. And most people are that have been, as I said earlier, I think in the industry for a year or two, or have an eye on a different side of the industry or something like that, have a lot to offer.
Awesome. If anyone doesn't have anything else to add. Question 3. This is for Katherine. The peer group mentoring sounds great. Is anyone aware of any group like that in the solar industry and or in the Bay Area? If not, perhaps this would be a good place to get one started.
Yeah, Kristen's group sounds amazing. I have been spending my time here on the webcast wondering the same question. Do we have this going on in solar? Should we be starting this? Should Grid start this? Maybe we need to put our heads together a little bit at SPI. I'm not aware of anything that is as formal and structured. Perhaps it's something that can just grow up organically, particularly with the number of people who are physically located in the Bay Area. The Women's Energy Network is a national organization that I think is a good place to show up and find a mentor, even if they don't run a mentor match program. The Women's Council on Energy and the Environment is another good. It's pretty East Coast heavy, but I think technically a national organization, again, committed to really networking and education for women in these energy and environment fields. So if anybody wants those websites, it's wen.org and wcee.org, or reach out to me and maybe we really just have to start our own.
This is Kristen. I'll just add in quickly that there are a lot of great women in the WOWI program that work on more than just wind. So they're working across renewables, and there are even some solar-specific folks working on other technologies. So to the extent folks are interested either in participating in the WOWI program specifically or in working on helping us expand our program, I'd be happy to talk about that.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add? No, it was directed to Katherine, but anyone's able to answer it. Okay, so finally we have our last question, which is from Silvana. I will start a mentorship relationship soon from a mentoring program. How do you engage in dialogue with a mentor you are assigned? What do you talk about with them? I want to avoid seeming too insecure.
Can I start?
Absolutely.
I think one of the best things to do is just to sit down and have a casual conversation, asking the mentor more about them. Let them talk about themselves so you get a sense of how they reach their goal, and then sharing about yourself, and just not anything real specific. What are your likes, dislikes, and just small talk. Start off with small talk.
Yeah, I mean, it's like going on a first date, right? This person is mostly a stranger to you, but you think that there's some level of connection, and that's how you ended up here together. Now, whether that's on the phone or in person, I, at the beginning, like to do Skype calls with people or FaceTime, so you get a lot more of that nonverbal communication, and you can build the relationship faster if you're not in the same place. But I do think in that first date construct, you know, big picture ideas, nothing too personal, nothing too, you know, controversial maybe, and talk about who you are as a person, and maybe get started a little bit in hinting toward what your goals are and what you want to get out of the relationship.
Yeah, I'd follow a very similar path. I think it's starting in some of those easy conversation places, but I think also, you know, you're going to want to get to some heavy stuff eventually. So I think it's valuable to start asking questions early, and, you know, maybe not diving in on the heavy stuff right from the get-go, but sort of, can you tell me your story? Tell me a little bit about how you ended up where you are and why you're there and what you love about it and what's been hard. And you know, the more you can figure out about someone else's career path or decisions or obstacles along the way or reasons they made certain turns or choices, the more I think you'll be able to find the places where there's overlap or things you want to explore more or things that you think might be relevant to your own decision-making process and direction, and kind of start, as Katherine said, from a high level, but then sort of figure out where are some of those places that you're interested in digging in and knowing more, and really, you know, finding out about that person and what makes them tick.
All right, well, thank you so much for answering the viewers' questions. I did want to add that with our office, or our offices regional-wide, we are working with our young girls through mentorship programs in high schools with our Solar Futures program, offering opportunities for young women to get a chance to gain their skills, learn the soft skills needed for any work within the industry, and creating that networking opportunity. We're happy to connect the young women that we work with anybody who are our partners, and other offices. We just try to give them all the opportunity that they can find and connect with a real person, whether it being through Skype or coming into our office and participating in the meetings that we do. We offer internships with college students, giving them the same opportunity as well, just giving anybody that leg up in the industry and that help. Like you ladies mentioned, just being able to say yes when somebody asks and calls out. So we're really, really excited to see where these conversations continue to go, and all the different examples that you ladies have given. I do also want to mention that organizations such as TechBridge and Mentor.org are great resources as well. So for anybody looking for that information, we're happy to provide that. So it looks like our hour is just about up. I do want to thank everybody. Katherine, Kristen, Donna, Fiona, you ladies are absolutely wonderful. Thank you for sharing your insight with our viewers and being such great resources and role models, mentors to all of these individuals who are coming into the industry. It's so nice to know that there are people that they can reach out to. So for our viewers, if any of you would like to connect with our panelists, you can find them on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in getting further involved with Grid Alternatives, learning more about our Women in Solar initiatives, or with our open solar core positions, please visit us at gridalternatives.org. I'd also like to mention that several of our offices are currently hiring. So if you are interested in getting your solar career started, visit our job page at gridalternatives.org/jobs. So if anybody has any final thoughts that we can leave a lasting thought with our viewers, go ahead. And if not, thank you and have a wonderful day.
I can't let it go. I guess I would just say my quick last thought is that, I think one thing that we saw, and I mentioned this before, is people's hesitation either to see themselves as a mentor or to go out and ask for the help they needed and wanted. And so, as much as there are a lot of things that our companies and our industry needs to do, at the end of the day, it all comes back to each of us being willing to step up and get out there and take some chances and some risks. So I just want to encourage everybody to get out there and ask for what you need and what you want and what you're hoping to get, and make some errors and change your methods along the way, and have a great time doing it.
Yep, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out, for those of you in the Bay Area, October, I think it's the 18th, in San Francisco, SEIA is hosting a women's empowerment event. So it will be primarily focused on educational content, but with plenty of networking breaks interspersed. So if you come to that, I'll bet by the end of the day, you will talk to enough people that you could find a mentor or a mentee to satisfy that itch. Find more information on SEIA's website about that event.
Thank you very much, and everybody enjoy the rest of your day.